Welcome to the Rural Dispatch, the podcast delivering stories from rural America. I'm your host, Allie Behrens. Headquartered in rural Iowa, I help run a nationwide livestock transportation company, and I'm here to bring you stories from the people who help shape this industry and our rural communities. Whether you're a trucker, livestock producer, or rural entrepreneur, this show is for you. Each week, we explore the realities of rural business life, from the highways to the fields and everything in between. So buckle up and let's dive into today's episode. Today, we are really excited to have Rich Pudenz with us.
Rich, welcome.
Yep.
Thank you for doing this.
Honored.
Without being offended, Rich, I want to ask, how old are you?
I'll be 94 in June.
You're going to be 94 in June.
Yeah.
You think you've seen a thing or two in your day?
I believe I have.
What commercial is that? I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two.
Oh, yeah.
What insurance commercial? All right. Perfect. Allie, go for it.
Well, I think let's start at the very beginning. Tell us where you grew up, about your parents and family and all of that.
Well, born in Carroll, stayed there all my life until I went to service. But I had 6 brothers and 5 sisters. And one of my brothers was Jim, and he's also smokes grandpa.
Yep. Jim would have been my grandpa, Jim Pudenz.
Yeah. And me and him did a lot of traveling together in Kansas, the Flint Hills and that. They usually made me open the gates, him and Foot sat in the back of the pickup. But I heard a lot of stories from just the old gentleman that drove us around.
So you grew up with, would you say 6 brothers?
Yep.
5 sisters.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Where were you in that lineup?
I was the 3rd youngest. Yeah.
Okay, so what did your parents do?
They farmed.
They did farm.
Yep. Went through the Depression and everything, but we always had something to eat.
Where'd you guys live?
7 miles north of Carroll.
So that's got to be right around where your guys' farms are now then.
Yep. Yeah, Dad and Mom lived where we lived, and till the house got too small, and they moved down to where Jim lived.
So you guys lived where you lived?
Right south of Ellis Corner, yeah.
Okay, and then you moved to where Carter lives now.
Yeah.
Oh. So, okay. Interesting. I would have had no idea.
Yep.
So this is why we ask.
Then, we got me starting the cattle business with my brother Jim. A commission man from McTier brought us a little calf, or about a 400-pound calf, and that's, we and him had that together. Then we just kept feeding cattle until I went to the Army. Then he kept it up for me. He'd go to Sioux City and buy some calves.
Wait, all this cattle feeding started with one 400-pound calf.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to back up to your growing up on the farm with your parents. You guys farmed, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys have livestock growing up?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And we had milk cows. And one morning, me and my brother Jim, first my brother Leroy, I had to take care of the hogs first, and then I went over to him to milk. He said, "We don't have to get such a cow in this night." I said, "Why?" He said, "She's laid down in the basement dead."
So how many cows did you milk?
Oh, 7 or 8.
7 or 8?
Yeah.
Now, did you sell that, or did you guys keep most of that milk?
Well, always it was separated. Put it in a separator and turned it, and the cream come out one spout and the milk came out the other. And then Dad and Mom would take it to town and sell it, buy groceries.
So you had other cattle besides the milk cows?
Oh, Dad always fed cattle, yeah.
I mean, did he have 100 or did he have 500?
Oh, no, he had probably 100 of them. And he did it all with a bushel basket.
Fed them with a bushel basket.
Yeah. Carried all the feed out in the bunk. You pull a wagon between the bunks and then carry it out.
Did you pull the wagon with a horse?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And when it was money, the horses had a hard time getting through some of the places. But you kept on feeding them.
My, how things have changed.
Yeah, right. No kidding. So then hogs too?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And he used to buy corn sometimes, and there was a hog house up there. He would put the corn in there, and he would carry it out with a bushel basket. And to clean the lots, we used 10-time pitchforks or scoops and went out there, and that's how we cleaned the lots.
Well, that's how you clean the lots.
Yeah. Didn't have no tractors, had loaders,
Now, what stockyards did you guys sell your fats at?
Most of it at Omaha, Berrigan Brothers.
Is that the commission company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He liked football, and he went to Notre Dame. And, well, he said we didn't do too good until we got some of them chocolate-colored people with us.
You mean the Notre Dame team? Yeah. That's kind of the way that goes anymore. They're kind of the real athletes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Bernie was quite a character. He had a large family. He was telling about they were getting ready for Christmas, midnight mass on Christmas. He said Santa Claus came in and he was running around the house, and he said, "Who the hell are you?" "I'm Santa Claus, you dumb bastard." He said, "I never did find out who he was."
Who the real Santa Claus was there? So did your dad, did he have his own straight truck? Or
No, Ed Heim used to always haul him. And then in the fall, Dad would go along with Ed Heim to Omaha and buy calves. One time coming across the bridge, Endgate came out and dropped 3 cattle on the road there, but they got them back.
They got him back?
Times were different then.
So I feel like when we talked to Denny Kluver, he always said, it seemed like Omaha is where people sold them. And then like Kansas City is where a lot of the feeders used to come from.
Kansas City and Sioux City.
Kansas City and Sioux City.
Yeah.
So your parents fed, then you moved across the road.
Yeah.
So then was there livestock at both farms?
Yeah.
There was?
Yeah.
Okay.
He fed cattle mostly on the place we moved off of.
Now I'm assuming back in those days, moms were just stay at home.
Yeah.
They stayed home and took care of the kids then, correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and she always had a big garden. She'd have stuff picked before we ever got up in the morning. Me and my brother Roy and Herb, we'd have to shell the peas and stuff like that. So we thought it'd be a lot easier to take them and run them through the wringer or the wash machine and just have it open up, put the pea shot all over hell. Mom wasn't too proud.
That was not her idea.
No.
Well, yeah, I suppose. So, yeah, I'm sure everybody had a garden.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Back then.
Big gardens and flowers.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. Did you have to share a room?
Oh, yes.
Did everybody share rooms?
Oh, yes.
Who do you think you bunked up with?
Well, me and Roy.
You and Leroy?
Yeah.
Did you go to school in Carroll or Breda?
Mount Carmel.
Oh, Mount Carmel.
Yeah. Yeah. We drove with 3 other people. We'd have the biggest kid sit on the bottom, and then the next one would sit on top of him. But Denny's dad used to play a lot of poker, him and Marvin Ulrich. Denny's dad drove on Friday night, and sometimes it was kind of late before we got home. Sometimes he'd give me the keys to drive home.
I believe that. So after you went to school in Mount Carmel,
yeah.
Then what? Then did you take off for the service?
Well, I was home for about a year or so. I guess about a couple of years, then you got drafted.
Oh, you got drafted?
Yeah.
What year do you think you got drafted?
In 52.
Where'd they send you?
Korea? Yep. So, yeah, there was 10 of us guys left, and 9 of us come back. Well, Glenn Wank got killed over there.
That's why we have Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll take him a can of beer tomorrow.
That's perfect. So how long did you stay in Korea?
Oh, I was a little over 7 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and after the war, they moved our outfit back to Japan.
Oh, Japan.
Yeah, and that was kind of nice duty. They had 3 of us in a room, and you could buy a bottle of whiskey, I.W. Harper for $2.05 and Canadian Club for $1.95. And we always had booze in the room. You sit there and play cards at night, drink whiskey and water. First sergeant come in about 12:30 and have a drink. And say, boys, it's time to go to bed.
Well, I like it that you're drinking with water. At least you're staying hydrated.
Oh, yes.
So, and you come home from Japan.
Yeah, after the war, went back to the farm, yeah. At that time, me and Jim was still in partnership, and I had him keep a bunch of sows. But at that time, there was a disease called TGE. Out of 16 sows, we saved 32 pigs. Oh.
So, we roughly had two pigs a sow.
Well, the veterinary told us just turn off the electricity and go to the house.
Just let them.
Yep.
Just let nature take its course.
Yep. That's all you could do at that time. There was no vaccine.
Yep.
Then he bought a bunch of Canadian calves in Sioux City. I remember.
Jim did?
Yeah. There were so many cattle there, they had them up in the hog pens.
Oh, up in Sioux City?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were Canadians. And Elmer Steinbeck, he was the order buyer. He said, yeah, we'll buy them. Well, the guy said, you got to run them down and let them drink first. Jim said, no, don't let him do that. Elmer said, don't worry, they ain't going to drink that water.
Yeah.
They were the toughest little devils I've ever seen. Cold weather didn't bother them a bit.
Oh, I suppose not.
Yeah, he never had no problems with them.
That's about like they say, we just got some out of Oklahoma last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was here. They said, they got a little ear. And I'm like, that's just going to be just fine during the summer.
Yeah.
That's not going to bother us a bit.
Yeah.
At all.
No. And they were real cheap, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. They just about let us have them. So, but, like back then when you bought them Canadians in Sioux City, how big were they, you think?
They weighed 340 pounds.
Well, they weighed 340.
Yeah.
And how many?
Oh, we bought a load of them.
Truckload. Oh, a straight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're not talking pots yet.
No. Well, yeah, Wilson made them right up there they had them parked right up on the hill up there.
Yep. What year do you think this was? This had to be like
55.
55.
Yeah.
1955. 340-pound heifers or steers?
Heifers.
Heifer calf.
Yeah.
Cost.
Yeah.
25 cents?
Yeah, they weren't that high, about 20 cents.
About 20 cents.
Yeah. That one fall, market wasn't very good. And of course, there was packing plant in Fort Dodge, and Wilbur Bundage bought cattle for him. We would sell them to him for 17 cents a pound. And Joe Waller was a commission man out of Omaha, and he said, keep the trucks rolling to Fort Dodge.
17 cents.
Yeah. They worked, though. Yeah. At that time, everything was cheap.
Well, yeah. Back then, you bought them, you fed them, you sold them. Now there's so many different marketing strategies.
Oh, yeah.
But I suppose that wasn't a thing back then.
No.
Okay. But that's a question. Did you listen to the markets every day?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, we had just heard a story just this weekend from a guy. He said, I remember my grandpa listening to the markets at lunchtime. He said he'd have his big notepad and he'd write down what all the markets were doing. You had no other place to look at the markets, probably. I mean, you didn't have the internet. You weren't going online.
No. And for a while, we shipped the cattle to Chicago. And first of all, they'd give the names of the guys that sold them. But afterwards, they stopped that. So when we sent them to Chicago, we'd say from L's Corner. That way we knew where they were from.
How many head was a pen of cattle back then?
About 100.
Okay.
But we didn't have as many pens as we did in later years.
Right.
Yeah. Never had much trouble with the disease then. Didn't do much vaccinating.
Oh, you didn't?
Mm-mm.
You literally just bought them, fed them, sold them.
Yeah.
Now, what did a ration look like back then? I mean, what were you feeding?
Well, mostly corn and hay, and then when we cut silage, we give them some silage. But, and in protein, of course, we got Sweet Lassie out of Omaha. That'd be coming 100-pound bags, and it was harder than hell to handle. But it was good feed. Danny would go to Omaha with that straight truck. Everybody around there fed Nixon feed. So to separate from one man's to another, they put a piece of paper in between, and that's how they brought it back.
Yeah, that was the separation. It was a piece of paper.
Yep. Yeah.
So you probably really didn't mix it. The feed.
No.
Corn and then hay, and then, I mean, it just kind of all got layered.
Yes. Well, first of all, it was kind of just a gas deal, but afterwards, like for the corn, we had a little weigher come out of the feed, and it get so much in trip, and they'd count how many trips is going down. But then, first of all, we never had a feed wagon, and then we got a great grainovator, so we used that for a while.
What's a grainovator?
Oh, all they did was had an auger in them, and they augered it out into the bunk.
Oh, it augered it to the bunk.
Yeah, I'd auger out this way, and then had one going up vertical.
Okay. Well, that had to make it a little easier.
Yeah. Had a lot of trouble with founders then, though.
Oh, they just kept eating.
Yeah, and when they found her, they didn't do very good.
Right.
I want to know a little bit about what it was like working with your brother.
Oh, me and him got along real good. Yeah, we spent many a dime. He'd come up, call me in the afternoon and say, "Look, want to go along to Kansas City?" I say, "Yeah." So we go out there and go out in the Flint Hills and look at cattle. And then he bought a lot of cattle ahead in the spring. He contract, but he was feeding on his own then. He contracted us on the grass and that. No, they had some of them had what they call double stock. The ones that was just one group on it, they'd have to be off by the fall. In the fall, but the one that double stock was supposed to be off by July. I was riding with this one old crusty boy, and I said, "Man, it looks good out here." Yep, he said, "It's got a Sunday vest on."
When you and Grandpa Jim started feeding on your own, did he stay where they are now and you went back across the road?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I moved east of Carroll, 2 miles, farmed there for, just a couple of years. Then I moved up by Al's Corner, stayed there till I quit farming.
Stayed there till you came here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
How old were you when you quit farming?
Well, I probably bought the cattle up till 80.
Okay.
I went to Denison with Greg. Jim kind of turned the cattle buying over to Greg. And first he wasn't real sharp, but boy, he got good after a while.
Greg did?
Oh, my God, he is a master.
Yeah. He's good at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He was bidding on some heifers over to Denison one day, and I said, "Greg, get the hell out of there." He kept bidding. I said, "Greg, get the hell out of there." JR knocked him off to another guy, and he said, "I don't want that son of a..." I said, "See, they were running you."
They were.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's exactly right. Tell us a little bit about the stockyards. I mean, did you guys go to Chicago and Kansas City and all the different...
Well, Jim went to Kansas City every Thursday. Him and Wilbur. Yeah.
Him and Wilbur did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes I would ride along with him.
Real quick, how many brothers fed cattle? All of them?
All of them, yeah.
All of them did?
Yeah.
So you had Rich, Jim, Leroy, Herb, Wilbur...
Leonard and Edwin.
Leonard and Edwin.
Yeah. Yeah, Leonard and Edwin are down by, well, Edwin lived where I moved up, and then he bought a farm down by Litterdale, and he moved down there, and Leonard was farmer down there, and Wilbur and Leroy farmed up where, well, about the Sac County line and a couple miles over. So they farmed together there.
Who's the biggest cattle feeder out of all of them?
Jim, your grandpa.
Yep.
Yeah. Of course, yeah, he had cattle. a lot of different places. He was very sharp, very sharp.
So is Greg.
Yes.
I mean, he really followed in them footsteps.
Yeah. We'd go to Denison, and he'd probably talk to Jim a couple of times through the sale, But we would go down to Green City, out about as farther as we went, Lamoni, down by the Amish.
Really did some traveling buying.
Oh, about once a week he'd pick me up.
When you started, were cattle coming on trains?
Yes, from Alliance, bought a lot of cattle out of Alliance.
Alliance, Nebraska?
Yeah.
Now, what was in Alliance?
A great big sale barn. They had a lot of Indians out there working. They'd take their paycheck on Saturday night and get drunk and throw them in jail. Then they'd let them out by the time the sale was up. Go to so they could work again. A guy by the name of Frank Sargent and Jim McCarthy. And Jim drank quite a bit, but he could buy cattle no matter if he was drunk or not. He was one hell of a buyer.
Did the train come through Carroll?
Yeah. We'd have to call down there and see what time they were coming in. If you were down there, they would spot them, and you could unload them. But if you weren't there, they couldn't unload them until the next day.
They just keep driving?
Well, they'd leave the cattle off there, but they wouldn't spot them, You had to spot them so you could unload them. There's a guy by Mark Collison, bought hogs there, and scales, we'd always weigh the cattle and then run them back in a pen, see what they shrank. And if you bought 2 loads, well, at that time, the railroad company had a practice. If you bought a full load, you could put a trailer behind. Well, the next load was probably full, but they considered it a trailer. Until they cracked down on that. It was just a regular railroad car, but they called it a trailer.
So they had little pens there. She unloaded.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
they had pretty good sized pens there, yeah. Collison probably had some hogs in some of them, but there was plenty of pens besides that. We used to ship some by rail to Chicago, but they shrank so bad. You'd go down on Saturday afternoon and bed in the cars, load them Sunday morning. And sometimes the train would get a hot bearing, and then you'd have a couple of cattle by the time you got to Chicago.
how long do you think it took them to get to Chicago?
Oh, probably 10 hours, maybe longer than that. Depends on how many times they stopped.
Right. So why Chicago versus Omaha? Do you think they had a little better market?
Well, at times they did, yeah.
Okay.
At that time, they fed mostly steers. My dad used to buy some cattle. We always called him Uncle John Weeder now from Colorado. And Dad would buy his calves a lot of times, about 400 pounds. And Dad said to me one time, "You don't think I lost any money, do you?" He said, "I bought some calves for $40, fed them a year, and took them to Chicago and got $40 back."
This has been happening a long time.
That sounds like cattle feeding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So feeding cattle has always been a part of your life.
Oh, yes.
Besides when you took off for the service, there really has not been an ounce of your 94 years that hasn't been involved in the livestock industry.
Nope. Your grandpa, we got a picture of him. We had twin calves, and he was bottle feeding both of them. Your grandpa was very sharp.
Now, is there any big wins
Oh, yes.
that stick out in your mind?
Oh, yes. That one year, I know Jim and Beanie Barons used to feed some together. And that one year, they made about $500 a head. And I had some out there, rock feed yard out in Nebraska. And they worked about like that too, But we've also had some that lose $300 a head too. So it wasn't all gravy.
No, it's not. That is part of the risk of feeding cattle yet.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Of course, there's no risk in it today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're so cheap, it's about risk-free, ain't it?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
They ever turn any auctions on to let you watch online or anything?
Oh, I never watched much. Jim used to go down to Council Bluffs. They had auctions down there sometime anyhow. Well, he brought me a video one time, and I said, I know that auctioneer. He said, how do you know? Because I said, listen, if, with certain things, he'd say, well, got 2 bidders on them. Well, that's one more than I had before.
Yeah. Did you get into any other adventures besides feeding cattle?
Oh, I raised some hogs. I'd farrow sows about 4 times a year, about 25.
Okay, that's quite a few.
Yeah.
Did you finish them out then?
Oh, yeah.
The pigs? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that really probably added up to quite a few hogs.
Well, worked pretty good, yeah.
Did them just go to local buying stations?
Yes, yeah. Denny had a buying station in Breda for a while.
Denny Pudenz.
Yeah. He used to, when he first started trucking, he would, during the summer, he would haul gravel, and then he'd come home, take the gravel box off, put the livestock box on, and go to Omaha.
Oh, was you use the same truck?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yes.
Huh. Just like that, you just take this box off, put this box on.
Yeah. I don't know how, I don't know how he did it, but he did it, yeah.
No
Then
kidding.
He never said much. He just,
Now, who was his dad?
Shorty.
Okay.
Lawrence.
And where did they grow up around?
Oh, well, it's corner there. We went up the first corner, went about 3/4 mile east there. Well, Potiphar lived in the house for a while.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's where Denny Pudenz grew up.
That's where he kept his trucks.
Okay.
But then when he got the semis, he moved to Breda.
Gotcha. So outside of feeding cattle, did you have your hands in anything else?
No, just hogs. Well, there was a guy come around one day, and IBP stock was really good, and then they were starting another one, Blue Ribbon. He said, I asked him, what's the cheapest I can get in? I said, $200. But he said, it's a good buy. Well, they never opened up. Blue Ribbon, IBP bought them. You got what they call debenture bond, got 5% interest on your money. So it didn't take long to get rid of that.
Geez, 5%. 5% back then, was that pretty good? Or I guess what did it cost to borrow money from the bank back then?
Oh, probably 6, 7.
It did.
Yeah. It banked at Auburn at that time. It was about 5 miles north of where we lived.
Oh, Auburn.
Auburn, yeah.
Okay.
Hugo Bruns.
Were they pretty willing to borrow money for feeding cattle?
Well, the banking laws no one left them borrow $140,000, but then they would send the rest to Des Moines. It was all right till Des Moines started charging more interest. So I went down to see Frank Lever at Commercial Bank, and he told me what I could get there. And I went up and talked to Carl. I said, what would you do?
Was he your banker in Auburn?
Yeah, he said, I'd leave in a minute.
But I mean, $140,000 back then, that probably got you quite a bit, though.
Oh, yeah.
But still not enough. Quite a bit, but just not enough yet. Well, when do you think cattle were costing $40 a head? Like, what year do you think they were $40 a head?
Oh, probably back in the 40s.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
Right.
But that was just what Dad told me,
Yep. Absolutely. And how many acres did you guys farm? Like, how many did you farm when your dad was farming?
Well, Dad, he probably farmed with the boys and that. He probably farmed 100 acres. 500, yeah.
500?
Yeah. And I started out at the home place for 130 there, then moved up where we're at, and that was about 120, yeah. And then, of course, he had an 80 about 5 miles away. Me and Jim farmed that together.
How many row planter back then?
2 row first and then a 4 row. And then we finally got an 8-row.
Because that had to be a ways down the road.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, Jim had more, he bought more ground than I did, and so we both split up and planting each, because we both bought 8-row planters, yeah.
Okay, when you started farming yourself, did you have a 2 or a 4-row?
I had 4-row.
You had a 4-row?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and then what did you pull that with? A 40-20 or?
Oh, at that time, I had probably an M Farmo.
Oh.
At that time, I had International.
And then what about a combine?
We had a case combine, me and Jim together. He had a Wisconsin motor on it. It'd get hot, and you might crank that damn thing for an hour, with a lot of cussing.
Well, come to think about it, though, was a lot of that ear corn?
Yeah.
Like you put it in the corn crib?
Yeah. Everything was picked. It was picker, yeah.
Okay. That's I never thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
you didn't really combine it. You picked it.
Yeah. And then what you had extra, you put two rolls of lots together and made a ring and put it in there, and then you'd grind it through the winter.
Okay. Gotcha. When did IBP come to Denison?
I was probably in the 60s.
In the 60s?
Yeah.
Did it start as IBP?
Yeah. Andy Anderson, he hired farmers to do the work in that, and there, and then up at Dakota City. And then, Andy used to live right with him, work with him. He was one of the owners. Tom O'Haran was the first buyer we had. But your grandpa said when IBP closed, that cost us $50 a head. Most of the cattle, at that time you sold cattle at a certain price, then had an open top. If they was that much better, why? And that's the way most of the cattle were sold. Well, it was all farmers working there, and they were very careful when they skinned them and stuff like that. Some of these places, they leave about a half inch of fat on them on the hide and stuff like that.
Oh.
Yeah. So they wouldn't yield as good. Yeah.
I always say, I think the biggest change for everybody was when they closed Denison.
Yes.
The biggest thing for people to grasp was, we always waited for an advance.
Yes.
In Denison.
Yeah.
And then we started going to Schuyler and Dakota City, and everywhere. They're like, pick the advance up. That's not a thing no more.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But the last fat cattle truck always waited.
Yep.
For the check.
Either that or you drove over and got it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. Because the time you got it in the mail, the interest on it.
Right. That adds up just as much as it does today, for sure.
What stands out the most? The biggest changes in the industry over the years?
Well, they always said that the Board of Trade in Chicago was supposed to make sure that the market stayed steady. But we know that's a lie today, because they used to have a limit on what they could go up and down. Now like feeders sometimes go up $6 a day. You understand that, don't you?
Right. That's back to what I was saying before. You guys just listening to the markets on the radio or wherever you found them, now it's at the click of a finger for us, whether it's at the computer or on our phone. I mean, you can look it up in a couple seconds, and you will drive yourself nuts watching the board every day. People say,
"Oh, yeah.
Did you see what the board did today?" I'm like, "Oh, I didn't. I don't even look, because I will drive myself nuts."
There was an old gentleman out in Norfolk who bought a lot of feeder cattle out there by the name of Cecil Emmerich. He always said, if you ain't going to use the board, if you ain't going to use it, don't pay attention to it. And he was a very successful man, very nice man. He got a lot of information from him. Kind of picked in people's brains.
One of the biggest changes you're probably saying you've seen is how much the board can move.
Oh, yeah.
In a day.
Well, there's no way you can hedge them today with board, because the fat market's much far ahead of it.
I mean, was hedging a thing back then?
Some of them, the bankers would make some people that hedge them, yeah.
Okay.
But the ones they made that do that this year, they're in trouble. Like your grandpa said, Doug come off from college and he said, Dad, you should hedge some of them. He said, I got my own hedge. He said, I buy and sell every week. That's what your grandpa thought of that.
Uh-huh. That works for him.
Yeah.
But did it always work for him? Because I feel like when my dad was alive, my dad always said, there was a point in there where Grandpa had told him, I got to start making these work, or otherwise this is going to be about the end. Did he struggle somewhere in there too?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
I remember Bob Foots down there one time, and he said, wasn't for your brother Jim, I wouldn't be in business no more.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you think he did to help Foot?
I really don't know. I know he trusted him enough to leave a check with him, but then Bob got too big for him.
They're still big. They got a lot going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Bob was a wild man.
Was he? Yeah, you guys probably went, when you went to Kansas City and stuff, you went down and sat with him. And
Yeah. Jim wasn't going through with Bob then. He went through producers, Jake Boyston. And old Jake, after the sale, he said, let's go over the Golden Ox. And there'd be a lineup, and he'd just walk right around and, honey, where's my table at? Bring us some cold drinks. So.
I remember I was loading feeders. Of course, I don't truck anymore, so I don't know how many years ago this was, but I'm sitting in this little town down in Kansas, and a guy wakes me up, and he sees on the side of my truck, it says Carroll, Iowa, and he says, you from Carroll? And I go, yep. He goes, you know Jim Pudenz? I go, I do. Yes. And he goes, I used to own the stockyards in St. Joe. He said, Jim and Bob Foote sat next to each other. Like, he's like, second row up, seats 3 and 4 in. Oh, that's kind of cool that them guys remember that stuff.
Yeah. No, Jim was well known all over out there. He knew pretty much the good buyers and the bad buyers. But he got took sometimes too.
And not everybody was honest with him either.
No. There was a young veterinary from Breda. Well, Tom Derby was over there. Tom was the tops anyhow, but this young guy, he never had much to say. And Dad, Jim was walking from the barn with him, and Dad said to him, he said, does he know anything? If you don't, he said, he got the best damn teacher in Iowa. And he go, Posey just kind of smiled.
Do you guys still feed cattle?
Well, the corporation does, yeah. Oh, yeah, I check with them every day.
I suppose you do. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about
I
it?
used to love to go to sales. Greg would pick me up, and we'd probably go to a couple of sales a week, Then after the sale, Denison, I would go to the prime time.
Have a couple beers.
Take,
Did you go to many sales before Greg started?
I went to a few sales with Jim, and then most of the time we went out to Flint Hills.
Grandpa never really got real crazy about where he bought cattle from. I feel like it was always kind of centrally located.
Yeah.
Anymore, we haul cattle from everywhere. But I always feel like Grandpa was Kansas, Oklahoma, through the Midwest.
Yeah. The industry has really changed.
Yeah, it has.
Well, it's like Greg, you told me, you thought they were too high last fall. Well, everything worked. And to keep going on. We know sometime we're going to get rolled pretty good.
Our day of reckoning's coming.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, did you ever think you'd see $2 cattle, much less $2.30?
I did not.
Yeah.
Well, was it when did we go to that farm credit seminar?
Last spring.
So a year ago. And that speaker, he had said, we're going to see $2 fat cattle. And me and her, we left and we're like, who is this guy? $2 fat cattle.
Well, then somebody said they're going to $2.30. We thought they're nuts,
Mm-hmm.
but they've been there.
It just, keeps going up.
Yeah. Someday it ain't gonna be pretty.
What advice would you give cattle feeders today?
Well, this isn't the time to get in, but if you get out, when are you going to get back in? My dad always said, you can't do business with an empty scoop shovel.
You can't do business with an empty scoop shovel. So my dad always said, it's hard to sell candy in a candy store if you ain't got no candy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what my dad always said.
You know, we used to go down and load them cars, and there'd be old bums down there with a gallon can sitting on top of they had a little fire going, and they were making their stew. They'd never bother you.
That was down at the train?
Yep.
Okay.
I remember we had some coming in, and my oldest boy, he's probably in the 8th grade then, and it was just colder than hell outside. And I called over to area and find out when it's going to be there, and they told me what time it was. And we sat in that car for about 2 hours and waited for that train to come in. Oh, he was froze up.
Who hauled started with a straight truck hauling the livestock, and then did Denny Pudenz then move to pots?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was probably a big deal.
Yeah, well, he had inbreeder there, and it got on fire. Then he had that whole place south of breeder there on the east side where he would empty them out. And then he would always just kind of look at you and grin,
How big were fats? Was just 1,100 pound fat? Was that a big animal?
Yeah, average were about 900. Yeah,
fat.
Yeah.
And how long do you think you fed them? Now we feed them for 180 days.
Yeah. Well, like the Collison boys got all them black calves out of Texas. They knew what they were going to go to Chicago with them in the fall. So they got them they actually feed them about a year. Yeah.
Anymore, I feel like it's just kind of like, roughly 180 day or 200 day turn. And
me and Dad, Wilbur went to Omaha one time. And this was right, over 3, 4, or 5 years after I got out of the Army. And Joe Waller had these 3 pens of really good Hereford. And Trader had bought them all and went up the hill, and Dad said, let's go up there. So we went up there, and there was 42 in this one pen. Dad said, bet him 21 cents a pound for him. Oh, I can't take that. Pretty quick, he hung the gate open, wham. So Wilbur wasn't with us, and got him up for dinner, and he said, you want anybody anything? And Dad said, yeah, he bought a load of calf, about a 700-pound cattle. What did he give for him? Dad said 21 cents. Wilbur said, you could buy them all. He used a different word, but you could buy them all over the yards for a lot less than that. Dad said, not that kind of cattle.
21 cents.
Yeah, so I fed him till there was a fisherman came out from Chicago right on the 4th of July. Said, you just will sell them. They ain't going to get any better anyhow. Dolan come out the next day and said, don't let anybody talk you into selling them. He said, them kind of cattle, if they get good, they're going to bring something. So Joe Waller come out in August. He said, I'm not telling you to sell them. He said, but I'll tell you, I can get 26 cents for them. And took him down there, and he got 26 and a half. I just took 2 loads. But Dad said, if you're going to piss them away, piss them all away, he said. So I held the other half, the other 22 head till September. And I got 32 and a quarter for them. That was the top for the year.
Did you take them to Omaha?
Yeah.
32 cents was the top.
Yeah, 32 and a quarter.
32 and a quarter.
For the year, yeah.
What'd they weigh, do you think?
Oh, around 1,200 pounds.
Oh, they got big.
Yeah, and then one time sold some direct to the packer. Went on down there, and the kosher killed them. And each probably 1,300 pound steers, and they would come in and they had a chute there, and of course flip the steer over, and they'd put a chain around his one hind leg, and they'd hoist him up. They'd take a sword, cut him from ear to ear, one swing, and they took a little knife, went in there and checked if he had blemishes. that they was for kosher kill. So old Jew said, you know, I was going to kill them that way, you wouldn't have sold them to me, would you? I said, you got the kind of money next fall, I'll sell them again.
So if you weren't taking them to Omaha fat, where was the closest plant around here?
Well, Fort Dodge.
Fort Dodge?
For a while, yeah.
And what was that in Fort Dodge?
Fort Dodge Pack.
Fort Dodge Pack.
Yeah. Fire, I remember his name yet. Wilbur Barney. Goodbye him. All heifers, what was that way?
They killed all heifers.
Well, that's what all we had.
Oh, you guys fed all heifers.
At that time, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why, but all of us got away from steers and went to heifers. Took more money to feed steers.
Yeah, that's true. You can feed more, afford to buy more with heifers.
I want to ask what you were up to when you weren't feeding cattle.
Oh, there was a place up in Sac City called the Indian Village. Tom Dermy said, you go up there to have your fun. Then you go over it was an old house converted into a restaurant. And they had very good food. Then you'd go over there to eat. I went up with Denny night at one time. That was kind of a bad deal.
Oh, no. What happened?
Well, we stayed along too much.
Stayed just a little bit longer than you should have.
Yeah. I had to get up early the next morning.
Well, unfortunately, chores still have to be done.
Yes.
No matter how things went the night before.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys feed once a day, twice a day?
Twice a day. So now some of them are just going to feed once a day.
Yep. Do you guys still feed twice a day?
Oh, not all the time. They don't. Weekends, you'll feed once a day. Well, they'll feed them and then they'll come back and feed them again.
Mm.
Yep.
Nobody wants to work on Saturday anymore.
No, they don't, do they? Not a lot happens on the weekends. That's definitely a change from even when I kind of first started trucking, which wasn't that long ago.
Wait till your boys get up, then they'll have to go here.
Yeah, I am not looking forward to traveling this and traveling that and
Yes.
spending all my weekends at all sorts of different competitions, I guess.
Of course, your boys probably do like you want to be in a truck.
We'll see. We're a long ways away yet, but
Yeah.
The oldest one definitely has an interest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the younger one.
yeah, the oldest one, Ridge, who's 4, he does really good in the truck. I mean, he loves it. So the younger one, he always gets really sad, though, when we leave him. So about a month ago, I was like, I had to go to Denison. So I was like, we're going to test this. I'm just going to take him to Denison with me. And we lost interest already in about Vail, headed over. And I was like, well, I'm glad we're only going to Denison and back and not a whole lot further because he made it for a long trip and it wasn't even that long of a trip. But as much as he thinks he wants to, he didn't much care for it. So they're definitely different. A lot of the same, but
Yeah.
they definitely different in that aspect.
They all got a different personality.
Yeah, exactly. What's the secret to living 94 years?
Well, I could tell you, like George Burns, he lived to be 100 when he turned 100 years old. They asked him why he lived that long. He said, I smoked so many cigars per year and a day and have so many drinks. Well, but I've had my share of that. So, yeah.
Well, this was fun. I'm glad you did it. Thank you.
Well, enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Rural Dispatch. I hope you found something valuable to take back to your own operation. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. You can keep up with me between episodes on socials at Barons & Co. or join our email list on our website to get new episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Wednesday. Until next time, keep those wheels turning. We'll talk soon.